Teasdale was known to be involved in the Underground Railroad in Des Moines. Lieutenant Governor B.F. Gue remarked that John was among well-known Iowa men who were always ready to help the travelers on the lines of the Underground Railroad. He helped to make Des Moines one of the chief stops on the railroad in Iowa, receiving John Brown and his freedom seekers at least twice. On February 4, 1859, John Brown crossed into Iowa with 12 freedom seekers from Missouri and 10 men who assisted them. He had traveled through Iowa many times before, directing freedom seekers from Missouri through Iowa and on to Chicago and Canada. Brown first stopped in Civil Bend, then Tabor, before entering Des Moines on February 17th. While the freedom seekers camped in the woods near James Jordan's home and other notable stops on the Network to Freedom in West Des Moines, Brown and John Henry Kagi went into the city to seek safe passage across the Des Moines Register. Kagi had worked on newspapers in New York and knew of Teasdale's abolitionist sentiments, while Brown knew him before from their interactions in Akron and Iowa City. Brown sent word to Teasdale that he would be through the city at a stated hour, and the three met. Teasdale claimed they met at the bridge on Court Avenue, attempting to avoid observation. Another source, Lieutenant Governor Gue, claimed that the group visited the citizen office, where Mr. Teasdale and Mr. Brown talked for some time in a semi-confidential way, until Mr. Teasdale said something to him in a rather controversial manner about rashness. The old man arose from his chair, his countenance shining like an electric light. This argument aligns with another statement made by Teasdale. He noted that he tried to convince Brown not to make the trip, stating, "I deprecated the struggle as madness that would probably cost him his life." Still, Teasdale agreed to pay the ferry fee. Brown and Kagi returned to the camp, hiding the freedom seekers in the back of a wagon behind their camping supplies. Once back in Des Moines, Teasdale noted, "With mingling feelings of sorrow and anxiety, I grasped his hand and bid him adieu." While the freedom seekers were safely brought to Ontario in March, this was the last trip John Brown would take. In October of 1859, Brown and his band of men raided Harper's Ferry in Virginia, and in December, Brown was hanged. Teasdale had written editorials in The Citizen asking that Brown's life be spared, stating, "His death can add nothing to the security of slave property. The spectacle of that old snowy-haired man driven to madness by the violence of his pro-slavery enemies, standing on the gallows, will deepen and widen the tide of public feeling that was now setting against slavery." After the final episode with John Brown, not much is known about Teasdale's role in the Underground Railroad. He continued to work as the state printer until 1860. In 1861, he was appointed Postmaster General of Des Moines by President Lincoln. Around this time, he sold the Register to F.W. Palmer to focus on his new role as postmaster. In 1868, Teasdale and his family moved back to Mount Pleasant, Iowa, where he worked for the Journal. They moved back to Des Moines in spring of 1881 or 1882, where Teasdale spent his final years. He became seriously ill in the summer of 1882 and died on July 21, 1882, at 8 a.m. at his residence. Teasdale was buried at Woodland Cemetery with 3 of his late children. He was memorialized in numerous newspapers, one noting, "His convictions were honorable and just, and he always aimed to be true to them. He lived a useful life, and his memory should be cherished among the most honorable of Iowa's citizens during its first quarter century's existence."